Well, I knew I was a writer by age 7, and when I talk to other published authors, I find that's almost a universal age for a lot of us to self-identify as writers, and it's around age 7 when we first feel we can write a sentence. And I told my father, who's a immigrant family, and he said that's no way to make a living.
That's true.
It is very hard. It's a hard way to make a living. So he said, go into the sciences. And I liked science anyway, and I went into medical school.
And I wanted to ask you about Rizzoli and Isles, since that's an extremely popular series. And I just wondered where those characters came from. I mean, was it because of your medical training, or was it something else to decide to pair a detective and a medical examiner?
Most of my books tend to be very organic. I don't plan these things out ahead of time. Jane Rizzoli, the detective, was born in one book called The Surgeon. And if you've ever read that book, you know she's not a likable person. She's quite frankly a bitch. And I didn't see the need to make her likable because she was supposed to die in that story. She was a secondary character. She was the partner of the hero, who was the homicide detective. As I was writing this story, I thought, you're going to die, you're going to die. I don't need to make you happy, I don't care about you. And somehow, because I wasn't paying attention to her, she became a full-fledged character. She's very smart. She's the only woman in the homicide unit, which is very realistic. And she's not beautiful. That was the one thing that really bugged her, was that the men would never look at her. They would always look at the gorgeous women in the room. But there was one thing about Jane that I really identified with, and she's an outsider. She's a woman that nobody really accepts. She's the only girl in a family with brothers. So by the time it came time to kill her, and if you've read the book, you know which scene I'm talking about, I couldn't do it. Part of the reason the series has gone on so long for me is that I always wanted to find out what happened to them next. Does Jane get married? Does she have a child? And poor Jane. I think there were her pregnancy lasted 4 books.
Since Lisa was talking about your book, Playing with Fires, her latest book, I was kind of blown away by the fact that not only do you write beautifully, but you wrote a piece of music that is the focus of the book. And so I just wondered how you got started in music, or sort of who pushed you, or what inspired you, or when you started playing. I guess, how did you become musical?
Chinese parents.
Okay. Easy enough.
When I was growing up in California, I don't know how many of you read the book, The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. My parents were tiger parents, which means they push their kids. They push their kids very, very hard to acquire as many skills as possible. It's that immigrant vigor. And every Asian American girl, and boy too, that I knew of growing up in California, played at least one instrument, and I just happened to play 2. This book came out of 2 dreams. And first of all, this book was not something anybody expected me to write. It was not a book my publisher wanted. My publisher wants Rizzoli and Isles again and again, because we know those books sell. And part of, I think, the challenge of being, continuing as a creative person is to forget what the naysayers say. Everybody's always going to tell you, you can't do this, you can't do that, we don't want this, we don't want that. And it's important to push through that. So I happened to be in Venice for my birthday. Another Rizzoli and Isles book was due, and I had a dream that I was playing my violin. I didn't know what the melody was, but I knew somehow it was dark, and a baby was sitting next to me, and as I played this music, this baby's eyes glowed red, and she turned into a monster. Wow. And I woke up and thought, I have no idea what that dream means, but there's a story here. I didn't know what the story was. I just knew it had to do with music and its ability to communicate something, either good or evil. And as I walked around Venice that day, I ended up in the Ghetto Nuovo, which is the old Jewish quarter in Venice. And in that quarter, there are plaques, memorials to the 246 Venice Jews who were deported during World War II. Almost all of them died in Poland. And I came across this wooden plaque that had names. It's always just names, engraved with names and ages. And one cluster of names, I don't know why, struck me. It was the Tedesco family. And I just had this weird kind of, you know how the hair on the back of your neck sometimes stand up, and it was almost as if somebody said, here's your story. You need to write about these people. So those two things, the music, the baby that turns into a monster, and the Tedesco family are really what Playing with Fire is all about.